so busy.
Good. Here we are.
Good evening.
Evening.
Bonsoir. Here we are in our refinery because it's Sparkling Sunday.
Sparkling Sunday. We've got our shirts on.
6 likes already. Does that mean
That's
6
just,
people are
they
here?
know, but no. That means they know that we're going live at a certain time. And yes,
okay.
I like that. I want.
Okay. Oh, we've got 6 people there now, though.
Yeah. Anyway, whilst we wait for everyone else to join.
Bonsoir tout le monde.
Bonsoir.
Good evening.
Good night.
Hello, Amanda and Steve Roncontra in sunny Thames Ditton. Always fancied living in Thames Ditton.
And Sarah White and Luke. Thank you, Alice.
Good
very
evening,
swish.
Luke.
Sparkling Sunday.
Made a little Penelope pit stop moment.
Ooh.
I thought about putting the sunnies on. I couldn't find
a little bit. Mind you, there is quite a lot of light in here. So here we are.
So exciting having a glass of bubbly on a Sunday evening when nobody has to go to work on Monday. Woohoo!
Hey.
Well, at least us anyway.
Wow, always working.
And many other people who
always working.
Hopefully are enjoying a little bit of the lockdown.
Does everyone have their sparkles this Sunday? That's what I want to know.
Sparkly.
Yeah.
Mr. McCool's all dressed up with his new Hannibal Brown little neckerchief. Stop the drool.
Very smart is too.
It doesn't
Hi,
really.
Russell. Hi, Claire.
Evening, Russell. Oh, hello from Wales. Wales is in the news at the moment because the Hay Festival has started. And it's in full swing. And if anybody has never been to Hay, then do the next best thing, which is log on to the Hay Festival digital website and choose something to listen to. It's all free, although I know they kind of would like a donation, but it is all free and it's fabulous. I was really emotional last night when it came on.
Yeah, well, it's such a great event. It's so nice to be there, but hey, it's good that they're doing it anyway. So yeah, definitely recommend it. Go and expand the mind with a glass of wine. So it's Sparkling Sunday.
Hello, Robert Reed. I'm afraid we have what? Chianti. Nice spelling.
I think that's okay on a Sunday. If you don't want your bubbly, but I think we could say a big cheers to everyone, don't you?
Good evening, Penny Woods.
Cheers, everybody. Cheers.
Penny Woods being the winner of the last competition. She won herself a bottle of Why Not Verdeco. What did she do?
But one competition, actually, that was.
Oh, yeah.
And the last competition was the winner of the Big Fat Piggy.
Which we haven't announced yet.
To be announced, so we'll be announced very shortly.
Oh, we're obviously not yet.
Yeah, we're on it, but not yet. Evening, Penny. Evening, Steve. Evening, Tom. And
Good
Gemma.
Evening, Jane Rhodes and Felicity.
And Luke has the bubbles on the go. So it wouldn't be Sparkling Sunday without a bit of sparkle and a bit of bubbly. Cheers. We should see if Finn wants his little slurp as well. Ooh, what I done.
By the way, if anybody could give us a little thumbs up, if they can hear us okay, if I'm shouting or if I'm not loud enough, tell me. Because
we're not going to change anything until next time we're on.
And Russell Clark, I have no idea what you're saying, but I hope that's Welsh and not something.
Lucky da.
Oh, is that what it says?
Lucky
Lucky da.
So actually, I'm going to take my sparkles off because they're a wee bit itchy, but you get the idea. Tim Carter's asking Jacques Bruer first. Actually, if you're going to have both, I'll go Pignoletto first.
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, Suzanne and Jono. Nice to see you here this evening. I think the point to say, actually, we've been doing these lockdown live tastings pretty much since the lockdown begun. And unlike you guys, we can't drink 2 bottles in a row.
We can, but just not that many times a week. So we have chosen one to open.
Yeah, we've chosen one. And we've chosen one that we visited not very long ago, and we'll talk to you about that. But first up, Pignoletto. Oh, no. News of the moment.
Go for it. Update on Pam's week.
Ju picked some elderflowers yesterday because they're in bloom.
Indeed. Yeah, I haven't done anything with them.
We went miles and miles and miles to find these elderflowers, only to find that actually they were in the next door neighbour's garden.
It was
She's not going to make an elderflower champagne.
No, I've tried that. I've tried elderflower champagne in inverted commas before, and it's sparkling alcoholic liquid, but it tasted revolting. So a bit of a waste of good water, if you ask me. So gin and a lot of sugar.
Elderflower
gin and vinegar this week. But we don't want to talk vinegar because we've got some lovely bubblies here.
Well, a few other things to say. My recipe stroke wine of the moment week went to nasi goreng that I made. and it went beautifully because the sun's out with the Master Domas Reserve de Gassac Rosé.
Yes, good.
So
top tip.
kind of unusual, surprising. Now the Reserve de Gassac Rosé has just moved to 2019, so it's nice and fresh and vibrant, and there's lots of fruit there. And although my nasi goreng was kind of like slightly, was it super hot? It was
yes,
quite
it was.
hot.
There was Scotch bonnet instead of some other chili.
It was quite hot, but the rosé went super well with it.
Very good combo. I just got to quickly answer Tim Carter because it's important.
Yeah.
If you're only going to go for one of the bubblies and you're feeling in a mood for something a bit richer, go with the Jacques Breuer. That's what we fancied.
Yep. Hello, Georgina Sydenham. And the other one was, just to get it in there first before somebody else mentions lamb cutlets with a garam masala rub with Monsieur Labarbe Merlot, which was out of stock. It's now back in. It's a new vintage. It's all been bottled. Managed to get it transferred over to France because the bottling lines in France are on a real go slow at the moment because they've been in lockdown too. But it's here, and that's a great with the carrots in the caramelized whatever it was.
Oh, there were we did carrots on the barbecue, but in foil, in butter with a little bit of sugar and a little bit of spice, and they kind of caramelize along with the lamb. That's delicious, and a nice glass of Monsieur Labarbe. Yeah. But we've got to go.
And the other news, the other news from the wine industry is that Rosé Prosecco has been declared. So up until now, it was impossible to have Prosecco that was pink. And that is because, Jude, Prosecco is
a white grape. And as we've said to people before, and people have pointed out before, you can't make pink or red wine from white grapes. Exactly.
But now the lovely Italians have said, no, it's permitted to put a little bit of Pinot Noir in the Prosecco and basically make a blend. And call it Prosecco Rosé. So there you go. But we're not going to talk about Prosecco too much, are we? We're going to talk about Pignoletto.
So let me just quickly mention the two wines that we suggested people get together for this tasting are two very different bubblies. Not champagne, not Prosecco, but just different. So we've got the tall, slender bottle is called Pignoletto. Now, it's Italian, but it's not Prosecco. It's a different grape variety to Prosecco. In fact, the grape is
Pignoletto.
There you go. And it's from just a very small region
called Pignoletto. No,
it's not. Stop it. Just west of Bologna in Italy. So only from there, and it's a really lovely, lightly sparkled wine. It's frizzante, which is why it's in a normal closure. So the frizzante means lower gas, lower pressure, lighter bubbles. Don't need to have the full belt and braces on the cork to keep it in.
So we should probably talk a little bit about that. And why is it so much cheaper than a champagne, for example?
Oh, well, then that is the question of how are they all made?
What's it all about?
How do you get your bubbles in your bubbly?
How do you get your bubbles in your bubbly? Exactly. So there are 3 or 4 ways, but there are 2 basic principles.
Whilst we hold that thought, we would like to know what's everyone's favorite bubbly. So if you go to bubbly, are you a champagne drinker? Are you Prosecco? Are you Cava? Are you Cremant? Let us know. Pop them out there on the comments because it'd be really interesting to know where people are at. Yeah. Sorry, and carry on. Now back to Pignoletto.
Right then. So Pignoletto, as you said, it's a frizzante, so slightly less pétillant, slightly less sparkling, but nevertheless, it's got bubbles in it. How much is it? It's about a tenner. Now, you won't get champagne for a tenner. If you do, it's not champagne. So we have 2 methods. The Pignoletto, just like Prosecco, is produced as a normal wine. The grapes are fermented to around about 9%. And then the wine is transferred into massive tanks and it's carbonated. So literally like a massive grape soda stream. Now, I know there's somebody on there that bought a soda stream this year, and I'm pretty jealous. Literally, the wine is gassed, and boom, literally, they put a cork in it, and they hold it. So the gas is retained in there. It's then bottled under chilled to retain the gas, and Bob's your uncle. So it's a very cheap methodology, and that's why there tends to be, well, there's no age on Prosecco, very rarely. Mm-hmm. There's no age on Pignoletto, really. These wines are produced to drink at a fresh point. And the bubbles are not particularly sophisticated because it is literally just carbon dioxide pumped into it. So,
just quick reference back to what people are drinking, just for the interest,
because it's really warm
so
in here.
we've got Claire on champagne. Steve
Well
is
done.
vintage champagne first, then a
Very
good
nice.
non-vintage, then Cava.
Happy bank holiday.
Sarah's on the Moet.
Moet.
Luke, Method Marlborough.
What is it?
Method Marlborough. Kerry likes Lindau from New Zealand.
Nice choice, actually. Very nice choice.
Tom Treadwell.
Hello, Tom Treadwell.
Usually, Prosy, that I'm guessing is Prosecco.
Oyster Bay Sparkling Cuvée tonight.
Okay, nice.
Okay.
Yeah, up the game. Cheers to that.
Check out Lindau. It's better than Oyster Bay.
Suzanne Morgan, Method South Africa. Actually, it's interesting. In South Africa, it's MCC, isn't it?
Yeah.
Method Cap Classique.
Yeah.
Which is what we're drinking, actually. Yeah. So we'll talk about that in just a moment.
But why is champagne so expensive?
Well, it can't be a big soda stream production, can it?
No, it's not. So why don't we just talk a little bit more about the Pignoletto first?
Go for it.
Before we go. So the Pignoletto is from a small, there's not an awful lot of it produced. It comes from the, what's the name of it?
Emilia-Romagna.
Emilia-Romagna. And what's the name of the town?
Bologna.
Bologna, thank you. If you go to Bologna and you ask for a glass of Prosecco, they will give you Pignoletto. It's theirs. There's not an awful lot produced. But what is produced is a decent quality, and its appeal is that it's nice, it's light, it's refreshing, but it's got a little bit more to it than Prosecco, and the Italians consider it a lot more refined than Prosecco. As Jude said, frizzante, so not quite as sparkling, so don't expect to see so much bubbly in it, and it's just a nice, easy-going aperitif.
Gentle, nice
Very
fruit.
popular amongst Italians.
$11.95, so not breaking the bank, but nice and refined, and only light on the alcohol. So it's only about 11.5%. Did you say that?
No.
So which makes it really nice in the sunshine.
Yeah.
So that's a cheaper way to produce your bubbly.
The more expensive way is to make the wine ferment itself in the bottle. So with champagne, or indeed with any wine that says Method Champenoise, or on this one, what does it say? Cap Classique for South African, or MCC, Method Cap Classique.
Method
It's
Traditionnel.
exactly the same way. Method Traditionnel. All of these are the method of actually producing champagne. Now, bear in mind that Champagne is a producing region. It's a massive, great region, and it produces something called champagne. So there, they pick the grapes, they ferment the grapes to approximately 9%. Then they bottle it. They pop a little bit more yeast in and a touch of sugar in the top of the bottle, and they stick a cap on it. And they put it away, upside down.
In fact, I can show you how they put it. If you just take a little look at this, these are the Pommery champagne caves, and they're all those bottles lying there upside down. Well, 45 degrees in their riddling racks.
Yeah, and that's how they sit there for the next 18 months or something until, well, every day the cellar masters, the cellar people come in and they basically riddle them. And they turn them a quarter every few hours, and basically what they're doing is they're trying to sort of encourage the lees, the yeast and what have you, and the debris to drop to the bottle, to the neck of the bottle. But they keep doing this continuously, turning it like this, and this process goes on and on and on and on and on for, as I said, months, sometimes years. Once that process is over, they freeze the neck of the bottle, they take the lid off, and they pop a little bit more sugar in, they pop the cork on, and they leave the wines to settle, and then for another 18 months or something.
For champagne, champagne is left longer, isn't it, than other...
So the point that they're doing is they're putting yeast in, and they're putting a dose of sugar in there to actually create a secondary fermentation. And as everybody knows, fermentation produces carbon dioxide. But of course, there's nowhere for the bubbles to go, so it sits in the bottle. And this is why you get these massive, chunky bottles, because the pressure is immense. It's like something, about 4 bars, which is, it packs a
more
punch.
than your car tire.
It's a
right?
bit like a dog hitting you at 100 miles per hour, which you did, didn't you?
But more greater pressure than is in your car tires, isn't it? So it kind of puts it into perspective.
Yeah. So, point is, it's a very long and drawn out process. The bottles are expensive, the packaging is expensive, and the whole process is kind of labor intensive. So it's more expensive. And there we go. And of course, it carries a champagne label and the Method Champenoise style. And
the whole process, though, does tend towards wines with greater depth of flavor than your soda stream method, right?
Yeah. Because the lees or the debris sits in that bottle for so long, but it's actually, the wine is drawing off characters and what have you, and sort of creaminess, and a lot more sort of characteristics than you would get, say, in a Prosecco or Pignoletto.
So it's a more interesting wine, for sure. There's quite a few people on the English sparkling, which we will get to.
Lovely.
We love a bit of English sparkling. We're not going to talk too much about it because next Sunday is England, if I'm right.
Yeah.
But
there is a good point to make, though. Actually,
go on.
The basic principles. Champagne. Everybody's probably familiar with the fact that there's some champagne producers who are now sort of buying up land, or were buying up land in Kent and Sussex and Suffolk, and all the way through. And there really is, because we in the UK and this sort of southwest region, southeast to southwest region, if you draw a line between the Champagne region all the way to the border, to the west coast of France, under the Channel, into Kent, into Sussex, keep going. We're all sitting on the same chalk plane. And that's why it's so attractive to champagne producers, because bear in mind, there is a restriction, there's a limit on how much they are permitted to grow in the Champagne region, and it's at that limit. Right? So if these champagne producers want to make more sparkling wine, they've got to go elsewhere. And because we've basically got exactly the same soil, and the climate is like almost identical as well now.
Mostly.
They're kind of finding that the growing conditions are fantastic, and English sparkling wine, not allowed to call it champagne, is right up there with the best, and priced accordingly too. There is one difference, though, that it might be changing, but generally speaking, English champagne or English sparkling wine is slightly more acidic than champagne. And the reason for that is the climate is slightly lower. So slightly lower temperature produces slightly more acidity, generally speaking.
So 2018, when we had our super summer, is likely to be a riper, less acidic year.
Exactly.
So look out for that one. It won't be released yet, although the years are ticking over quite quickly.
Yeah.
So
maybe next year,
maybe it's a good time for a starter for 10.
Oh, yeah.
Now to be won this evening. We give a bottle up to be won on Thursdays. This is purely for, your own pride and beating everyone else to the answer.
This is just the Steve Rencontre. There's a Pommery Louise 1995. There we go.
We'll talk about that shortly. So here's your starter for 10, everyone, just to see if you're listening. Which country, no Googling, which country in the world do you think consumes the most sparkling wine? Okay. One guess each, no Googling, no cheating.
Which country consumes the most sparkling wine?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Interesting one. Yeah, interesting and surprising answer. So,
Russell, you need a subscription. What for?
So Tom Treadwell is asking how many grapes to make his own and how big a garden does he need. I might have missed a few little comments.
1 kilo produces 1 bottle of wine, Tom Treadwell.
So it's not the garden. Well, you need a nice south-facing sloping garden in a very warm corner.
Yeah.
Here we go. Right. UK, Spain, UK, USA, Italy, Russia.
Evening, James Harris Bomber. USA. Wow.
Keep them coming, and we'll let you know shortly.
Say anything.
So I'm going back to our method Cap Classique. This is, the producer is called Bon Courage. We do some other of their still wines, and this particular one is named Jacques Brouwer, who is the founder of Bon Courage. Now, this is a Blanc de Blanc. Which means white of whites. Which means it's only made from one grape variety, which is the same as in Europe. So we'll let you answer that as well. With all these answers coming
Nigeria,
through,
I like that. Nigeria.
So
they
it's
do drink a lot in Nigeria.
100% produced from a white grape, produced in the same way as champagne. This wine differs to the Pignoletto in one big way as well, which the Pignoletto is a non-vintage and the Jacques Brouwer is a vintage. So the difference between non-vintage and vintage is really important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we've probably all got in our wine rack a bottle of champagne that someone gave us that we're thinking, oh, I'm going to hold on to that for a special occasion, and we'll sit there for years and years. It's not necessarily getting better.
No. So all of you are sitting there on a bottle of Veuve Clicquot non-vintage yellow label, and it's been sitting there for years and years and years. It's getting worse and worse and worse. Drink it. It's not designed to be held onto. It's designed to be drunk immediately. And the fundamental principle, the thing about non-vintage and vintage is very simple. Vintage, so for example, this one, 1995. There we go, 1995. Vintage means that all of the grapes that were used were produced in that particular year. So they were farmed and they were picked in 1995. That means it's a vintage, 100%. If it's non-vintage, then it's quite possible that some of the grapes were produced in maybe 2 or 3 different years, and it's been blended over the course of the year. So Moët & Chandon non-vintage, which is your bog standard. Sorry, whoever it is that was drinking it.
It's a very special one, and I hope you're enjoying it.
Or your Veuve Clicquot non-vintage yellow label. These wines have been produced from different grapes produced in different years. Yeah. And they're blended together to produce something that is designed to be drunk immediately, not to be held onto. Okay. They don't declare vintages every year. So, for example, our house champagne, which is Cuvée Jean-Paul Deville,
brilliant, amazing.
We do is lovely non-vintage, and that's fine and easily available. But he last declared a vintage in 2005. And we're just waiting to see when his next declaration is going to be. So there you go.
Yeah, so it's only on really special years when there's, and that's not then the entire region can claim a vintage, because you still have to have the individual vineyards at the quality they want them to be, don't you?
Yeah.
So it's a minefield. But if you've got vintage, it will last.
Yeah.
If it's non-vintage, drink it. So take a look at those dusty bottles in your wine rack.
Yeah.
Have a look. Non-vintage will always have NV written on the label, and the vintage will always have the year.
Yeah. So this really is 2011, which means it's got a nice maturity to it. I'm liking Russell Clark. I need a subscription to your wines because the Purple Heron I'm drinking is awful. Well, I don't know what Purple Heron is. Purple Heron, I suppose they're purple. Yeah, sounds a bit pink flamingo-y or
sounds like
blue
South
crane.
African, I reckon. Yeah. So just go quickly back to the Jacques Brouwer, because I think this is a phenomenally good wine.
Yeah.
It's 2011 vintage. It's Chardonnay. It's $16.99 a bottle.
Yeah.
It's from a producer up near Robertson, which is near to Stellenbosch. It's all in the same area.
Yeah.
And it's just brilliant. And they're very ecologically, environmentally friendly and cautious.
Yeah.
And they make lovely wines, and it's a family wine.
And I suppose if anybody's got the 2 wines open, you'll notice that the Pignoletto is nice and ripe, and it's got an element of sort of like fresh apple to it. Whereas the Jacques Brouwer Blanc de Blanc, already the color, you see more depth of color, so it's already showing a bit of age, but it's got more creaminess, and it's just unctuous,
rich and
rich, but
rich.
It's still super fresh,
Yeah.
super fresh, easy to drink,
not as acidic as champagne.
Exactly.
So that's a big plug for that. So any big celebration, get on the Jacques Brouwer Pignoletto for a lighter, lower alcohol drinking session. There's
a good question there, actually. Tom Tread has why don't the non-vintages age well? They're not designed to age, is the answer to that, Tom. They are, the blend is designed to be drunk at an early age. It's just not what they're trying to do. The winemakers are trying to make something that is fresh and ready to drink and not for aging.
So it's more the highest quality fruit will go into the vintages.
Yeah.
But you still, in a bottle of non-vintage champagne, by the time it's on the shelf being sold, it's already a couple of years old, right? 3 years old or so.
The non-vintage,
yeah.
But equally, it's not held in cellar for any length of time. Whereas the vintage champagne, bear in mind, we just said our Jean-Paul Deville, we've just run out of the 2005 Well, that's 15 years ago, and there is still no next vintage coming on yet.
Yeah.
So vintage champagnes need a long, long time. I'll tell you a really good story, actually. Everybody knows John Turode. I hope you know John Turode. Famous for
Master Chef.
The Master Chef. Well, Johnny and I used to work together many years ago, and he won't mind me telling him when he used to be a commie chef.
We all start somewhere.
At Conrad, the Pont de la Tour. No, he's a good chef. He's a good chef. But I remember going to somebody's house with him for lunch, and he rocked up with a bottle of Cristal, Louis Roederer Cristal. Spent a fortune on it. Came in, he said, oh, you know, John Turode as he is. Spent 180 quid on this. Let's crack it open. And I looked at it and went, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. And I said, John, don't open it. Don't open it. Because it was a vintage, and I can't remember the vintage, but it was far too young. It was something like 2005, and this was probably in 2012. And I knew that it just wasn't going to show.
Need another 20 years, probably, presumably.
And he opened it, it was poured, and it did nothing. It just wasn't ready. And what he really should have done was like held on to it until maybe now, or maybe even another 10 years or something. These vintage champagnes, particularly things like Roederer Cristal, if anybody gives you a bottle of Cristal, do not drink it.
So there's two big like consumer learnings there. One, if it's non-vintage, drink it. Two, if it's vintage and it's too young, don't drink it.
Yeah.
Both of them will be ruined experiences and a real waste of a bottle of bubbly.
Yeah. But of course, you see the big brands, the Moet et Chandons and the Louis Roederers and all of these people, they have to release their vintage champagne at some point. The problem with Cristal is they release it and people think it's ready to drink, and it's just not. It's just not. So I don't know what the latest Cristal vintage is. It may well still be the 2005. I don't know, or 2007.
No idea.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's a real waste. So
I mean,
don't do it.
And it does go back to this one that we literally drank this. It's 1995, is it?
Jolly nice it was
1995, too, yeah. And it was ready. Hurrah, hurrah. And we even knew it was ready because look what happened to the cork.
The cork popped itself nearly in my right eye,
Look
actually.
At this. So normally you get that splayedness, and this is actually sort of soaked up and kind of like
exactly
dried up.
It's a good cork. So Tom was just asking, how do you know how long to wait to get the best out of a vintage? That is a real minefield. Actually, there are vintage.
Buy 12 bottles at least and drink one each year.
Yeah. Do that, or there are vintage charts out there which you can track certain wines from different regions and when they should or shouldn't be drinking, and then it's just potluck. But don't leave them too long. But
Claire Clark is saying she had this Jean-Paul Deville sparkling at Christmas Day, and it was delicious. That's great.
We know.
And Stephen Conrad is talking about international rescue after drinking. Well, I imagine so. I don't know how much you drink, Steve.
I think it was referring to the purple heron.
Oh, right. Okay.
So who drinks the most sparkling wine in the world? No one has guessed the right answer. Which
that
gives me great
pleasure.
It's actually the Germans.
Germany.
The Germans are big sparkling drinkers.
Yeah.
Now, it's got to be said, a lot of it is German sparkling wine. They're sect. They produce. But
S-E-K-T.
By far the most bubbly drunk. To put it into perspective, theirs works out as about 4.7 bottles of sparkling per head per year.
That's pretty good game.
Quite a lot.
Yeah.
The UK is about 3.5. And that's even
too.
Since the Prosecco boom, which upped everyone's consumption massively.
Yeah, but let's tell them something really fun. Because, the Germans are classy, but we're classier. We are a classier
Just
nation.
you and I? Oh, the nation.
The nation is classier, amazingly.
That's a massive generalisation, but...
Because the Brits drink the most champagne in the world.
We do. We are by far the biggest export market. And by far the biggest champagne drinkers.
And then I think it's the Americans, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then the Germans.
And I think the Russians then sneak in as well.
Russians
so
are coming.
So here's quite.
What was it?
So he's just struggling with his new spot today. So we asked a couple of weeks ago about the average, or about a week ago, the average bottle price of a bottle of wine in the UK retail, which was something like £5.83 thereabouts.
Shocking.
So I've got the average sparkling wine bottle price and the average champagne bottle price, and it's kind of quite interesting. So I'd like to see what people think would be the average price for a bottle of sparkling wine, not champagne, in the UK retail. What is it bought for?
Okay.
I'll tell you what the champagne is, and then we're going to show you a little picture. So the champagne, the average price of a bottle of champagne is £23.25. So
23.
It's quite low. I mean, 10 years ago, or about 20 years ago, the average price in this country for a bottle of champagne was much higher. But there's been a big push on everything at that bottom end, hasn't there?
Yeah.
So you see the cheapo house supermarket home brands coming in.
Yeah. And actual fact, and it's really interesting because you can split a line down champagne as branded champagne and the small producers. And the branded champagne, there's probably about 100 champagne houses and about 20,000 small producers with small little openings. And these smaller producers really struggle to get shelf space because it's dominated by the Moets and the Clicquots and the Laurent Preys and this, that, and the other. And it's really difficult for them to get a foothold in. And the real frustration, and this is, I'm not sure how many people know this, but you get less value for money in a branded champagne than you do from a small producer. You always get better, well, this is quite sort of controversial.
Massive generalization.
In my opinion, in my humble opinion, I've drunk a lot of champers. By far, the smaller producers dominate the quality by comparison to the branded champagne. With the brands, what are you paying for? You're paying for a brand.
Yeah, so we don't need to remind you where you get your lovely bubblies from, which are going to be from small producers.
But it does go to the point, though, is that the smaller producers have had to sort of fight back to get that shelf space. And unfortunately, some of them have basically dropped the price down to some crazy, ridiculous level in order to get a foot in the door. And so they're the ones that are pulling down that sort of, the prestige and the value of champagne. So
which is frowned upon
clever.
within the region, right?
It's frowned upon within the region. Of course they do. They want to keep the status. It's a shame. It's a shame. But there you go.
So the average bottle, going back to sparkling wine in the UK, the average price paid for a bottle is actually about £7.22. So it's pretty minimal. There was quite a few good guesses there, actually. Now I'm just going to
£8.99, £9.50. Everybody thinks it's a little bit more expensive.
Well, I don't know, but then we had some cheaper ones as well. So who knows? It's a minefield out there. Right, we're gonna on this. This is something really interesting that has come up, and I borrowed this infographic from Vinamonic.
Is that what it's called? Infographic.
I can't read it, but this is a borrowed. This is a borrowed bit of image, but it gives you an idea. So we talk about these cheaper end wines. Going across, this is quite small, but you've got your £5 bottle of wine on the left and a £20 bottle of wine on your right. Okay, the red section at the bottom, or the burgundy section at the bottom, is the amount of wine you get in the bottle after all the other costs come out of there.
So in a £5 bottle of wine, you get bugger all wine in it.
It's about 30 pence is worth. This is so minute on our screen, I might just need to make it bigger.
That's better. There we go.
So yeah, about 31 pence worth. Whereas if you're looking at the £20 bottle of wine, which is more than you need to pay for a good bottle of wine, but just to put it into perspective, the £20 bottle of wine is more than 20 times more wine in it, has more than 20 times more wine in it than the £5 bottle of wine. Yeah. So, but
I always find it interesting, actually. So if you move from £5 bottle of wine up to £7.50, look how much more wine you get. I mean, there's still an awful lot of packaging and capsule charge and marketing, but you're getting 5 times more wine for spending just a couple of quid extra. And then to £10, look how much more wine you're getting. I mean, your £5-pounders. It's just pointless.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good quality wine. So what you've got in there is there's your excise duty, which is on each bottle of wine. Your VAT, of course. The cost of packaging it, the bottle it comes in, the boxes it comes in, the logistics, its ferry ticket from its country of origin. Yeah. There are so many costs popped onto this bottle of wine that the actual.
I just like to point out, actually, I'm not sure whether everybody's familiar with the excise duty, but in this country, import duty does not change. It doesn't matter how much the wine is; it's always the same. So at the moment, I think it's £2.23 or something.
This is slightly out of date.
On a still bottle of wine, I think it's £2.30 or something on a still bottle of wine, and then you pay VAT on top of the duty. Can you believe it? But that is the same for every single bottle of wine. So again, it's more expensive. You're paying more tax on a £5 bottle of wine than you are on a £20 bottle of wine. It's just doesn't make sense.
Remember that is a massively interesting kind of infographic, which is what it's called, and it just would make you think twice. I think when you're reaching for your £5 to think actually there's more bottle in this than wine. There's more everything in it than wine. So so. Back to the old questions in the comments here.
Start pronouncing it properly. Steve Unconscious drinking Michelinique 2012. Yeah. I've not had it, but I know of it, and it's obviously got a bit of age on it, so that's got to be a good thing. Again, it's vintage. If it was non-vintage, I'd be worried if it'd been sitting in your cellar for the last 10 years. Good for you.
I would like to ask a question, and I think we'll just have a hands up if you do. Who here likes Cava? So we haven't spoken about Cava yet. I'm just gurgling again.
Remember the gurgle?
Yeah, don't forget to gurgle. Even with bubbly, it's even more likely you're going to choke on the bubbly.
If you gurgle and you basically draw in a little bit more oxygen, then you're going to get an awful lot more characters coming out of the wine, rather than it just going straight down, pointless, doesn't touch the sides. You will really appreciate it a lot more. So there.
The monk who let's go back to Cava. So Cava, Steve likes Cava. There's a lot of people don't like Cava. There's a lot of Cava out there. You get your vintage and your non-vintage, and if you get a really nice vintage, it can be lovely. The main and one of the few
why is Cava so different
to Champagne? So Cava is produced in the same way, the method champenoise or method traditionnelle. They call it.
So it's fermented in the bottle.
Second fermentation in the bottle. Got its big heavy bottles, but it's much cheaper than champagne a lot of the time. So you kind of ask yourself, why is this? It doesn't have the kudos. Totally different grape varieties. So you're looking at Macabeo. Pagliada, Zarello, and there's sometimes another one. I can't remember. Quite obscure Spanish grape varieties make for a totally different wine. I find it can be quite tough, and you don't get the biscuitiness.
No, I also find them a little bit aggressive, and it's as Jude says, they're produced in exactly the same way as champagne, but different grape varieties, and that's where it's incredibly noticeable how different they are just from the different grape variety characteristics. I just find them a little bit aggressive. You can get nice ones, and they have introduced. They do use some of the champagne grapes. Have you mentioned what Blanc de Blanc is yet?
Yes, well, made from white grapes, and somebody did point out it's Chardonnay. So
so Blanc de Blanc is Chardonnay. It's always Chardonnay, Blanc de Blanc. And so going back to Cava, they do use Chardonnay, and it's noticeable that the Cava stylistically is changing. Hey, why are we talking about Cava?
Well, just because it's another sparkling that isn't featuring on our block here.
Yeah.
Whilst we talked about Pignoletto, which actually comes from a bit further south than where Prosecco comes from. We haven't talked about Prosecco either.
No.
But it's sure to be said that Pignoletto is produced in the same way as Prosecco, which is the soda stream.
Yeah.
Cava and Champagne are produced in the same way, and anything method classique produced in the same way as Champagne.
Yeah.
But in Champagne, you're always going to be paying 2 or 3 more times more for a bottle than
because it's champagne, and it's because we were very sparkly and we've got all smart.
It's a designer label. It's a designer label, isn't it? It's like Burgundy. It's like Bordeaux. It's like Amarone. There's loveliness attached to it, but you are doing a bit of designer shopping.
Of course we are. But we love it. Yeah, we love it.
We do.
So what do we drink with champagne? What do we eat with champagne?
Well, I'd get the oysters going. It depends as well. Have you got biscuity champagne, or have you got a really zippy one?
Yeah.
There was a question here from Russell about They had a bottle of Dom Perignon 2004, and it tasted oily. Is that what happens to non-vintage when it's past it?
Oh, but you said it was 2004.
Oh, actually, yeah.
Was it a non-vintage or was it 2004?
Yeah, no, sorry, yeah. If it's a 2004, then it's a vintage.
Yeah,
and it should have been still good.
Is that what happens to non-vintage champagne? No.
Non-vintage.
I don't know. Can you maybe clarify the question there?
So non-vintage champagne, if you leave it for too long and then open it and drink it, it loses a bit of character. Yeah,
it just loses character. It doesn't have as much depth.
Really the acidity dies. It tastes old. Yeah. It tastes like the brown apple that you've left there for an hour and come back to carry on eating, not the crisp, crunchy Braeburn that you wanted when you started.
Yeah. It is true to say that vintage champagne, for example, this one here, which was a 1995 Cuvée Louise from Pommery, it does take on a very sort of yeasty, quite a rich style that some people don't particularly like. So you've got to be really careful if you're going to drink vintage champagne. If you love those sort of really deep, weighty, leesy, yeasty, biscuity, all that, but maybe not any sort of fruit ripeness, then that's fine. But if you prefer something with a little bit more freshness, then you drink your vintage champagnes a little bit younger. There, okay?
Just answer to Tim's question. The Jacques Breuer is $17.99. Sorry, I think I said 16, but it's 17.
$17.99 and a Billy bargain. Actually, again, if you consider, a bottle of Moet, a bottle of Veuve Clicquot is retailing at 35, 40 quid these days. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Some of these wines, like Jacques Breuer from South Africa, Piri. Piri, we haven't even mentioned Piri. Piri from Tasmania, which is a Tasmanian sparkling wine, again,
Chardonnay.
made one. Is it 100% Chardonnay?
Actually, I think it's Pinot Noir as well.
Okay,
having said that.
But it's made in Tasmania in the traditional champagne way. It has won every world sparkling wine champagne accolades possibly available. It's wiped the floor with all the champagne houses, and it's still only something like 30 quid. It's phenomenal. Check it out. It's on our website. It's called Piri, P-I-R-R-I. P-I-R-I-E.
That's how it's spelled.
And I've hardly even drunk anything.
I actually got some other interesting figures here because obviously we all noticed the Prosecco boom, right? The affordable bubbly boom that meant everyone was having Prosecco in their garden. I think there's probably even Facebook groups set up just about drinking Prosecco together.
Yeah.
That was a massive boom over the last 5 years, probably.
Yeah.
But it's on the wane. So in quite a big way. So
particularly at the moment.
Well, yeah, especially right now. But in the UK, sparkling wine consumption between 2017 and 18 decreased by only 1%. But that's the first year in more than a decade that it decreased, probably even 2 decades.
But champagne sales decreased by...
Champagne sales last year decreased by 28%. Now, partly this might be due to Prosecco going up. There's a lot of it to do with gin being your aperitif drink, because gin has obviously been a massive boom as well. And that's the sort of go-to glass of something special before cracking on with the wine, I suppose. So a lot of reasons, but yeah, bubbly has fallen by the wayside a little bit. It's a shame.
And rosé.
And the growth and boom of rosé.
We love
rosé,
don't we?
Over.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of reasons, but it's kind of interesting.
That's true. Actually, the rosé category is still the only category that's going up at the moment, isn't it? In whole of wine.
Although that's saying that Argentinian Malbec was as well, although I think that might have plateaued a wee bit.
Okay, Kate Gibson Gannon has asked the question: how long can you store champagne? Good evening, Kate.
Hi, Kate.
You may have missed this. It depends whether you've got non-vintage or vintage. Very quickly, non-vintage is not designed to be stored. So if it is a non-vintage, drink it. Do not hold on to it. If it's a vintage, then 15, 20 years maybe.
Depending on the vintage and the producer.
We've just been drinking 2005 vintage in 1995. So 2005 is a really nice vintage champagne to be drinking at the moment.
Yes,
but nothing younger.
The 1995 we had a couple of days ago was stunning, probably at its peak. Wouldn't want to leave it much longer.
No.
But again, it depends on the quality of the wine to start with as well. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of a minefield. But the one to remember is if it's non-vintage, then it's like keeping a bottle of Prosecco for too long.
Yeah. So we've got a bit of trivia.
Oh yeah, let's put some trivia out. They love the
So the
they love
lovely
trivia.
thing about Méthode Champenoise or Cap Classique is it's always under a cork. So there's a world record. There is a Guinness World Record.
Yes.
There is a Guinness World Record for how far, what the furthest cork flight is, which is popping the cork out of a bottle of bubbly
From standing,
from
about
standing.
chest height. Poof. What do you think?
How far? Do you want to? You always want
So
to
what do you
know.
think in metric measures, please? The furthest champagne cork flight from standing was in meters and centimeters.
Oh.
Finn loves the cork.
Look at the size of his foot compared to the cork.
He can never have too many. So hopefully that sort of answers your question, Kate. Do drink the non-vintages. Definitely drink the non-vintages.
There we go. 37 meters. That's good, but not quite.
Solid
Keep going.
guess. Yeah.
Keep going.
So I've got a question here for Pam. Whilst you chuck your answers through.
Yeah.
So when you've got a label and you're trying to work out, is this going to be the sort of champagne I like? Let's go with champagne.
Yeah.
It's got brut, extra brut,
Oh yeah.
demi-sec,
Yeah.
brut nature.
Yeah.
What does all this mean, and what does it tell me about my wine?
Okay, so what we tend to drink, what we all drink on a day-to-day basis is normally brut, B-R-U-T. Brut is dry, or extra brut is even slightly drier. And I know that Lauren Perrier do a very good extra brut, and you could brush your teeth with it. It's so good, Put it over your cornflakes.
That's how we live here.
Fabulous. It's fabulous. Demi-sec says basically demi-sec means sort of half dry. Essentially, it means it's sweet. So it's the amount of residual sweetness in the champagne or sparkling, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So brut is dry. What were the other ones?
Extra brut.
Extra brut is even drier. And we're talking about literally sort of 2 or 3 grams 3 or 4 grams of sugar per litre in an extra brut. A standard brut champagne, so Mer de Chandon, Veuve Clicquot, any sort of standard non-vintage brut champagne, it's got around about 9, 10, 11, 12 grams per sugar. And then
per litre, yeah.
Demi-sec is going to be substantially more, maybe 18 to 20 grams per litre. And those wines are sort of more designed to drink with strawberries and things like
cream
that,
and
cream and whatever.
Wimbledon, yes.
They are fabulous. What's the other one? I can't remember. D-O-U-X, which is again just even sort of sweeter. but it's great. It's great with puddings.
True, and actually it's balanced with the acidity in the wine, so it's not like a unnecessarily sweet table wine.
There is another thing actually between different producers, different brands as well. They may be slightly more acidic, more appley, and some might be a little bit creamier. So Veuve Clicquot became very, very popular because it was slightly more biscuity, whereas maybe Pommery used to be slightly more appley. And this is to do with another sort of fermentation process called the malolactic fermentation process, where the malic, which is malic acid, which you get in apples, converts into lactic, sort of milkier acids, and they're just softer and toner. And some producers chose not to apply this malolactic fermentation, which they had this, which meant that they were sort of zesty and sort of fresher and riper and racier, whereas others chose to use it, which is where sort of Veuve Clicquot came in and sort of like,
So then there's a bit more management of the actual final product in the winery.
Yeah. I think times have changed now, and I think Pommery do go through the malolactic and just like make it a little bit more accessible for everybody else.
Now it's got to be said. That's very interesting. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Clarky says 52 meters.
Okay,
ooh la la, that's very close.
Clarky's
Georgina says 63. Luke 28. Sorry.
Shut up. Clarky's guess was the same as Claire's. Just going to put it out there. Who's theoretically came in first. Actually, what I wanted to just talk about quickly was our next tastings.
Oh yes.
So obviously our Sunday sessions are a bit more generic, and today is just sparkling Sunday. And Our next Thursday tasting is all about. In fact, no, it's simply Sauvignon Blanc. Sorry, I was like,
It's a bit simple.
Simply Sauvignon Blanc. That's Thursday. The two massively different Sauvignon Blancs. Canapé recipes will be up by Monday. And
Maybe.
It's going to be
Tuesday.
We're going to
It's bank holiday tomorrow.
Well, we're going to investigate why the world loves Sauvignon Blanc and look at two really different styles and see why they're different and what makes them different, and maybe how you could tell that which style you might like by reading the bottle, essentially.
Yep.
So that's Thursday. Next Sunday is it's not English,
Not Scottish, not Welsh,
but British.
No, the other way around. English, Scottish, Welsh, but definitely not British. Did you get it?
It was something like that. We'll tell you why that is when you come to that session.
Okay, so it's the not British wine tasting.
But you need to have a glass of something from local soils.
Not British wine.
British. And then the following Thursday is Lebanese night.
Whoa.
We're going to get all
Lebanese.
All Lebanese. So we'll see how that goes.
God. Another dive into the wardrobe.
We've got a red and a white from our Lebanese producer that are just lovely and definitely need the food. So we'll fit. Okay, and then and the following Sunday, I think we've even announced the following Sunday, which is orange wine. Okay, so there's quite a lot coming up,
and then we might take a break.
It's a hectic old schedule, but all the wines are available on the website as always. We hope you've liked the bubblies. They're both very different. It's not Prosecco, it's not champagne, and that's what we wanted to show you because that's what we're all about.
Yeah.
So another big thing that's been kicking off on the website is our mini organic DIY tasting kit, which is three bottles of organic wine, disguised, numbered. That comes with a crib sheet to take you through your own blind tasting with as many households as you like, because we can deliver it to all the households. But they've been really popular this week. So if you fancy holding a little tasting amongst you and your family because you're bored of quizzes, hop on the website and look at our DIY kits. They're really good fun.
Yeah. That's it. Is it?
I think that's it. Are there any questions?
A little shout out. Father's Day is coming. Father's Day is coming. Get your personalised labels in there.
Personalised wines for Father's Day, yep.
Send us a photograph, any message, choose your wine, and we'll design you a most beautiful label. You can even put your dog on it. I'm sure we've shown you that as well. So
we've had a thing.
Look at personalisedwinedesign.co.uk. It's Hannibal Brown's other website. Or just give us a shout at hannibalbrown.com.
Yeah, a big message to Tim Carter. Do not order Majestic own brand Prosecco.
No, don't order any of that.
Don't let us have to tell you this again and again.
Yes. Who are you trying to fool?
Everyone will tell you.
Do not do it.
The Pignoletto is so much more interesting and lovely, and it won't give you a headache.
I think I've had the same problem with Tesco Finest. Tesco Finest anything is Tesco's awfulest.
Well, let's see.
And I'm not even talking about wine
here. We'll carry on with the supermarket bashing when you're all gone. We need to tell you the answer of the longest champagne cork flight, very importantly. If I do a drum roll, do you want to reveal the answer?
Yes, give me. Oh, I've got it here. I've got it here. Closest to 54.18 meters.
Ooh, so I think there was a couple
177 foot.
Couple of 52-meter guesses. So well done. I mean, that is give it a go. Yeah. But you need to have a bottle which is going to be under decent pressure. So go with Carver.
I remember you want to drink it.
Go with a cheap bottle of Carver. Give it a big shake and see how far you can get that cork. Because 50 meters, that's quite something.
Jude nearly took her eye out with this one this week. It's kind of quite interesting. They're so dangerous. Health and safety and all that.
Pop timers in a corner, actually. So we hope you've kind of learned a little something from this. We hope you've enjoyed it. Liked the wines. I love that Sarah White loves them both. Well done. Good job. Time to crack open that second bottle, I reckon.
I'm ready. Well, I'm ready for the next one. The first one still.
So Finn says, thank you for joining us. And
thanks for joining us, Finn. He's still after the call.
Get up on the table. In fact, he's very tempted to get his tongue in this glass, I think.
Okay, everybody. Give us a shout. Let us know. Share it with all your buddies.
Yeah, see you on Thursday. For Simply Sauvignon Blanc.
Simply Sauvignon. There's nothing simple about Sauvignon Blanc.
No, that's true. It's going to be,
you
are going to be enlightened.
That's it. It's a wrap.
Thanks for joining. Ciao, ciao. Adios.
Enjoy your Sunday.